5 states are holding primary elections today. These contests are seen as another major test for former President Trump's influence over the Republican Party. So our senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is in Tempe, Arizona, where polls will open in less than 2 hours. Good morning. Did I mention how much I love Arizona? I love Arizona. You're in a great state.
Even in the triple-digit heat, Anne-Marie?
Yes, even that. Well, you know,
Okay.
I look for shade.
All right. There you go. Yeah, still triple-digit in the shade. But good morning from Arizona, where there are several Donald Trump-endorsed election-denying candidates on the GOP primary ballot today, some of whom have a good shot at winning in November and taking control of a major 2024 presidential battleground state.
In Arizona's race for governor and for U.S. Senate, candidates who are backed by former President Donald Trump and deny reality about 2020 are in the lead. And that's increasingly what Republican primary voters want.
I wouldn't vote for anybody that he hasn't endorsed. That's how I feel.
Nationwide, 57% of Republicans in the new CBS News Battleground Tracker poll say they're more likely to vote for a candidate who gets an endorsement from the former president. In Arizona's GOP primary for governor, that's what's helping Kari Lake, a former TV news anchor. She's a one-time Barack Obama supporter who's become a leading election skeptic. Still, she thinks she can win in November.
And I think our policies appeal to independents, Democrats, and Republicans.
But in a general election, our new poll finds a Trump endorsement makes registered voters overall less likely to vote for a candidate. And that's what worries Lake's primary opponent, Karen Taylor Robeson. She also won't say if President Biden won in 2020.
The one thing I know for certain is the wrong guy is in the White House. And that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
But Robeson's backed by the sitting governor and former Vice President Mike Pence and says Lake's too extreme to win.
I don't believe Kari Lake can get elected in November. She has fashioned herself as such an extremist.
The likely Democratic opponent, Katie Hobbs, agrees. Can you beat Kari Lake in November?
She is unappealing to the majority of voters, especially the voters with no party affiliation, which most of them identify that way because they don't like either extreme.
Trump's influence even stretches down the ballot to a race featuring Rusty Bowers, who testified earlier this summer about the former president's attempts to overturn the 2020 results.
You are asking me to do something against my oath, and I will not break my oath.
Trump endorsed his opponent. Bowers is also concerned his party is getting too extreme for voters.
There's an idea that if we sanitize the party, somehow it'll attract people. But really, the party gets smaller, and pretty soon a phone booth will handle it.
It is rare to see a former president engage in down-ballot races the way the former president is in that specific state Senate race here in the Grand Canyon State, but it's a reminder of his ongoing influence over the Republican Party. One other race, for example, here in Arizona to watch today is the one for Secretary of State, which, like in many other places, oversees elections. There are Trump-inspired election-denying candidates on the ballot, and members of both parties have expressed concern that if one of them wins in November, they may muck up the results of the 2024 presidential election. A reminder, lots of local and statewide races across the country this year that could have far-reaching, long-lasting national implications.
Well,
Anne-Marie.
So you make a great point there, because part of the reason we're focusing in on these races is not just about the influence of Donald Trump, but also about the upcoming November midterms. So sort of my overarching question has to do with that. You know, what does this signal about the midterm elections?
Well, it's just the latest chapter in the ongoing identity crisis, civil war, struggle, whatever you want to call it, among Republicans, a vocal group within them, probably a numeric minority right now that continues to say, we can't continue to do this. As Ms. Robeson said to me yesterday, you know, this is about multiplication and addition. Division isn't going to get us there, and that's what certain members of the party continue to do. The other thing it will signal is, look, if you have these kinds of candidates who our Battleground Tracker polling shows don't have broad appeal to independents and potential Democratic swing voters, will there be enough of the Democratic base and independents to show up to stop a potential Republican like this from winning, or will that Republican be able to drive out the GOP base, even in a state like Arizona, and win? Here, for example, you don't win a statewide race unless you've convinced most independents to vote for you and then most members of your party. So if the Democrats have a turnout problem here, some of those candidates are going to win. And like we said, could potentially set up 2024 to be really tricky in one of the states that, of course, put Joe Biden over the top.
So now we have emerging former Vice President Mike Pence, right? We've got the former President Trump, and it's not just about conservative policies. For him, you have to call into question the 2020 election. And the voice of his former vice president has become louder and louder, and is increasingly becoming another place where Republican candidates can kind of find a home. His argument is, we're not looking to the past, we're looking forward. Can we talk about his sort of growing influence and whether or not it's strong enough to combat what the former President Trump, the influence the former president has?
Well, it's unclear if the influence is growing, but he's certainly trying to counter the former president. Remember, he was a big factor late in the game in Georgia, where Governor Brian Kemp held off a challenge from a Trump-backed candidate. He, along with Doug Ducey, who's the governor here right now, head of the Republican Governors Association, now the former, are very concerned about making sure that sort of middle-of-the-road mainstream Republicans remain in charge of these big states. That's why he came here. That's why Governor Ducey has endorsed Ms. Robeson. That's why Chris Christie, a former chairman of the Republican Governors Association, also came out here to campaign with her, because they argue those kinds of sort of executive, problem-solving Republicans are the ones that ultimately can hold on to swing states and help Republicans win nationally, maybe even run one day for president. Those are the kinds of people that have worked in the past and can work again in the future. We'll see if that argument resonates in this purple state as it did in Georgia tonight. And if it doesn't now, perhaps their point will be proven in November if the Democrats prevail in some of these races. So, those are the faces essentially behind the two wings, the president and the former vice president. We've never really seen them at odds like this before. And never really before in previous modern political history have we seen two former running mates on either sides of an issue. But this is the latest chapter, and you bet that both will be keeping score tonight to try to see if their points breaking through.
So true. So listen, before I let you go, I'll just ask you sort of another overarching question, which are sort of, what are the other big races that you're following? What are you interested in?
Sure. We'll call out a few real quick. First off, in Kansas. And I know our Caitlin Huey Burns is there, and you guys will probably be talking to her. We'll be talking to her as well as us here in Arizona throughout the day. They are the first state to hold a statewide vote on whether or not to enshrine abortion rights statewide. It's a voter decision. Kansas, of course, a predominantly Republican state, so it'll be an interesting test to see if Democrats and independent voters are enough to show up and say, no, we don't want to allow an abortion ban to continue in the state. Three other candidates to watch, one in Michigan, two in Washington State. They are House Republicans who voted to impeach the former president. They are facing primary challenges tonight. If they go down, a further sign of the former president's influence and the Republican base's anger at them for doing so. If they hold on, it's a sign that at least a few of them may make it through. So those are a few to watch tonight.
All right, Ed, hey, listen, enjoy the 88-degree weather that you're getting there at 4 in the morning because it's going way up. So enjoy it while you can.
It sure is.
Thank you.
Take care.